Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel Blue Lady Couture, and welcome to my sewing room for an actual sewing vlog. I know it's been a while, I've been very lax at getting sewing vlogs out for you, but I always say this, you know how it is, I sew for a living and my paid customers have to take priority over doing sewing for myself. However, I am determined to change that ratio up a little bit this year, because while it's all well and good sewing for my clients, and I love sewing for my clients and obviously earning money from my clients to pay my bills, if I don't invest the time to make new items, new products, learn new skills, things like that, then things start to stagnate, which I think is something that happened a little bit for me last year. I don't want to go into the ins and outs of running a business and all that, because that's not what you're here for. You're here for the sewing content. But yes, this is the first in my series, a new series, which is going to be a big series. And when I say a big series, a long series, I'm fully expecting it to take me years to complete this mission that I have set myself. But don't worry, it's all going to be in little bite-sized chunks for you. Basically, I have decided that I want to sew my way through the decades. So starting in 1800, I am going to start sewing through all the different eras and the different changes in fashion and build up a wardrobe. I want to learn new skills. I want to study techniques that I have perhaps not looked at before or overlooked. And it's also not just going to be about making the final finished, garment that you see, that the base layers. So starting from the ground up and building up outfits. And I also think it's just really good sometimes to just go back to basics. I've been sewing for a long time now, and things that came really quickly and easy to me maybe 20 years ago, though date lines, specific fashions and things in specific eras and things like that, I'm not as quick off the mark to remember precise things anymore. So for me, I just want to go back to basics, refresh my knowledge and my skills, and if that means I can pass a little bit of that on to you guys through the medium of YouTube, so much the better. And alongside that, I will be building up my own personal historical wardrobe collection, as well as being able to add pieces into my Blue Lady Couture shop. And for those of you who don't know, Blue Lady Couture is where you can order your own pieces of my work. But yes, I obviously need to keep expanding that range, so that is partly what this project is for as well, is to hopefully add in some of the pieces that I'm creating throughout the series. Will go into the classic collection, which you can then order if you're not a sewer yourself. So for this video and the next few videos, I am going to be focusing on the Regency era. And I know that's a little bit of a misnomer if you know dates and things for the Regency era. The Regency era officially starts in 1811, but because the Empire style kind of really starts a decade or so earlier, I'm kind of just using that as an umbrella term for the era from 1800 up to about 1820. And yes, that does mean I am putting a couple of decades kind of into one. However, if you've followed my channel for a while, you will know that I have already done videos for the Regency era from a couple of years ago, but I want to take this opportunity to just kind of expand on that a little bit and introduce some new pieces, some new styles, because there wasn't just one style of Regency dress throughout that 20-year period. I have also been really inspired by some fabric that I have purchased for this project as well. But I've always wanted to make a Regency gown with a slightly more authentic Regency fabric, and unfortunately they are just so hard to come across these days. But while I was scouring the depths of the internet, I just happened to stumble across somebody who was selling some really beautiful fabrics that I was just like, wow, these are literally the fabrics I have been looking for. They are going to be perfect for a Regency gown, and I would really love to be able to offer them to some of my discerning clients. So this is the first one, which is a beautiful striped but also dobby spotted cotton muslin. So I'm hoping the camera will focus on that and not just wash it out because it's white under my studio lighting. But yeah, this was lovely, and is going to make for a stunning Regency gown of some description. Then I also have another white cotton, and this one, if it's possible, is even more stunning. and it's a beautiful sprigged or embroidered, for want of a better term, also in a stripe pattern, but it has, say, because it's sprigged, it has this more floral kind of element going to it. And I saw this and I was just, I'm sold. I had to have it. And then the final fabric I bought is this one. Now, you have to bear with me, this is black, which is of course a complete contrast to, you know, those stereotypical sheer white Regency gowns that these are going to be used for. I've kind of had the idea in my head for a while to make a black Regency gown. It's kind of inspired by this bonnet which will forever haunt me. It's the bonnet I let go and eventually ended up getting sold to somebody else, although I do know the hat maker has more of this striped fabric, but it's a black and blue striped fabric, and it really needs a black gown to work with it. I don't think a white gown would work as well, even if for whatever reason I don't get a hat made with this blue and black striped silk. I'm hoping to, but you know, I need to save up some pennies for that. But yeah, even if that doesn't happen, it just kind of got the ball rolling on wanting to make a black Regency gown. So I thought that would be really lovely, and I'm hoping to be able to play around with putting some different colours underneath it, and that is where I will come on to in a moment. But just one more thing about these. Oh yes, this fabric. This actually also comes in quite a broad range of different colours as well. I'm hoping it's something that I will be able to offer to my Blue Lady Couture customers as well. But say for the purpose of this video, I particularly wanted a black gown. So that is why I have brought black. And I've just realised I'm wearing a black top, which is probably the worst colour I could probably wear to demonstrate this fabric to you. But there we go. Never mind. Oh dear. Yes, so the other thing about this fabric is, you might notice I've got rather a lot of it, and that is because, as I say, I want to be able to offer it to my customers. However, there was kind of a bit of a question mark over the long-term availability of these fabrics, and it's one of the big issues that I have with my business when I add stuff to my classic collection for customers to order. It's the long-term availability of the fabrics, you know, and whether, you know, in 6 months, a year's time, the fabrics that I kind of go to the trouble of sourcing and adding to the listing, whether they will continue to be available from the suppliers. So obviously it's always a little bit of a risk. And where possible, I try not to hoard rolls and rolls and rolls of fabric, because sometimes you just don't know what colours are going to be popular, whether the entire design is going to be popular, and I just can't afford to invest, you know, the money into dozens and dozens of rolls of different colours of fabric and equally storing them. However, on this occasion, I kind of broke my own rules and was basically, if I don't order this fabric, the chances are it will disappear and I might not ever see it again, and then I shall be very sad. So I bought rather a lot of it in the hope that I'm going to be obviously able to offer it to my clients and that they will buy it, so I'm not left with big rolls of fabric. So yes, so these videos will also form part of a launch for a new, some new Regency pieces for the classic collection, which you will be able to learn more about on my business socials, or you can sign up to my business newsletter. I will put the subscription details in the description down below. And if at any point you feel you might be interested in purchasing one of my gowns made by me, I am going to be offering these exclusively to my subscriber list first, before I put out the remaining gowns that I have available from this fabric, just generally on my web stores. So yes, so if you think you might be interested in potentially ordering one of these, then do make sure you again subscribe via the link down below. And while we're talking about subscribing, I will just take this moment to say, if you enjoy my videos and you want to keep seeing more from me, please do like the video and leave me comments in the comments boxes down below. And if you subscribe to my channel, you'll be notified when my next videos go out. And of course, liking and commenting really helps support my channel and encourages YouTube to push it out to more people. Again, if you've followed my channel in recent weeks, you will know that I had the opportunity to go to a costume study day at the back end of 2024. And while I was there, I got to see the beautiful original costumes that were worn by Anya Taylor-Joy in the 2020 Emma. They've been bought by a museum, the Bankfield Museum here in the UK, along with Mr. Darcy's sweatshirt. So if you're interested, do go and check out my vlog from that day out, because yeah, that was a day. But yes, I got to see the 2020 Emma costumes, and I'm sure if you're a Regency fan, a Jane Austen fan, you will have seen that movie, and like me, you will have probably been agog at the beautiful costumes that are on display in that movie. So I got to see one of those costumes up close, and I will put a few pictures in here of my day of what I saw there. And yeah, basically that really inspired me and kind of cemented what I wanted to do with one of the gowns. And then the other thing where I'm finally coming on, I'm sorry, this has been a really long introduction. The other thing which I'm going to focus on, which again was inspired by seeing the Emma costumes, is some Regency petticoats to wear underneath the gowns, because it may not have escaped your notice, but these fabrics are pretty sheer. Now, they're not as sheer as some fabrics that I've seen, original fabrics that I've seen from the Regency gowns, Regency era. Well, this is one of my favourite images that I've come across on the internet that really demonstrates just how sheer these Regency gowns could be. Kind of a legend that, you know, they didn't wear anything underneath them, and they dampened the gowns down to make them, you know, cling to their bodies and be potentially even more sheer, you know, which, you know, thinking about it, that would have been absolutely scandalous. When you think how sheer these gowns are, you can't wear them without wearing something underneath, and certainly not if you're just, you know, an everyday lady in the Regency era. You're not going to be running around practically half naked. Yes, so in this video I am going to be focusing on making some Regency bodiced petticoats to wear underneath the gowns. Now, I already do have a chemise that I wear underneath my current Regency gowns, and short stays. So this time I'm not going to be making new versions of those, but I want to make these petticoats which will go on top of the stays, so you can't really see this, because I think this fabric is more sheer than the fabric I've used for my previous gowns. So I don't want to have just like the stays really visible, so I need something underneath which covers the stays as well as acts as, you know, as a bit of a lining layer. So it's really interesting to see the petticoat that Anya Taylor-Joy wears under her Emma gown, which in and of itself is essentially, you know, another dress. It's very lightweight. I think the skirt was made of a type of silk, I'm not 100% sure. And then I believe the bodice was a slightly different fabric, possibly more just a basic cotton. But one of the things I really loved about the petticoat, and something that I want to try and emulate in this project myself, is the padded hem. So I think the padded hem has kind of two purposes. Firstly, as you would expect, is it kicks the gown out a little bit, because as we go through the 1810s and into the late 18 teens, we go from a kind of a very straight silhouette that's very much inspired by kind of classic statues, you know, Grecian imagery, that kind of thing. And as we go through the decades of the into the late Regency era, things start to lose that simplicity and get a bit more fussy and a bit more heavily decorated. So you see that skirts start to go slightly more conical, slightly more flared out towards the hem, and you start to get heavier decoration and trims go around the hem. You get flounces and layers kind of added, as well as, you know, applied decoration. So by having a padded hem within the petticoat, that obviously helps create that shape and create that silhouette by flaring it out a bit more, and giving a little bit of support if there is anything, you know, a bit heavier on the hem of the gown. Because although it's it's heaviness on the hem of the gown, they're still potentially using, as we can see in the example of the Emma gown itself, it's still very lightweight, very sheer fabric. So yeah, so it needs something underneath to just give it a little bit of support. And the other thing that I'm interested in testing with the padded hem is when you're wearing Regency costumes and you're walking about. I have found with my other cotton gowns that I made a couple of years ago, particularly when I am wearing cotton stockings, if I'm walking certainly briskly down a street or something in Bath, I tend to find that the fabric kind of starts to get a bit caught up in between your legs sometimes when you're walking. So I'm interested to know about whether I can use the petticoat to prevent that happening, and I think that is certainly a case in point with having this padded hem, is that because it's got that kind of structure keeping the skirt out a little bit more, your legs have got a little bit more freedom to move. So I actually want to make two bodice petticoats. One I'm going to make in a plain white cotton lawn, which will just be absolutely perfect just to go under these and add kind of a lining layer under those. And for that one, I do want to experiment with whether at the hem to just put in kind of folded pleats, which you see kind of traditionally on a lot of petticoats throughout the 18th and 19th centuries. So I want to kind of experiment whether just adding pleated folds into the kind of the lower section of the petticoat is enough to give it enough body to kind of keep it kicked out for a simpler, earlier Regency look. Because I'm concerned that if I put padded hem in an early Regency petticoat, it's going to create too much of a conical shape, which is not quite right for early Regency. Then the second petticoat I want to make to go underneath this one, and there's no reason I can't wear this white petticoat underneath this gown. I certainly can, but I'm coming back to that whole the blue and the black stripe thing again, and I thought it might be quite nice to have a different coloured petticoat underneath, because again that is something that was prevalent in the Regency era, wearing slightly different coloured petticoats underneath your sort of semi-sheer gowns, just to give them kind of different looks. Obviously you could accessorise them with different colours then as well, and it just kind of expands your wardrobe when you're perhaps limited to only a handful of dresses. So I want to experiment with putting a coloured petticoat under this, and as I was looking around my studio I happened to notice that I have this fabric. This is a very beautiful silk, 100% silk happy tie. I say it's on a roll, but it's not a roll. It's I think it's 4 meters. Yeah, 4 meters. Which that's quite a lot for a silk happy tie, which I'll be honest is not cheap. So I am in two minds about using this just for a petticoat, but also wouldn't that be really luxurious and rather lovely to have for a petticoat? And obviously because it's silk, it should eliminate that issue with fabrics sticking together, sticking to your stockings and things like that. It should, because it's silk, it should sit and flow smoothly underneath the cottons of the gowns. But it just seems like it's potentially going to be perfect for this petticoat project. And if I lay the black striped fabric over it, you'll hopefully see, it's the wrong way around. I mean, it's subtle, but it just highlights the stripes a little bit more, I think. So I've very quickly created a pattern for the bodice sections of the petticoat, simply by just tracing off the panels from my Regency gown, and all I've done really is lower the neckline edge so that once it's folded under to create the drawstring channel, it should sit well within the neckline edge of the gowns. I've also just taken off the centre back opening because my plan is to make this centre front opening with a drawstring opening at the front, at the top of the neckline and under the bust. So I've taken off the centre back extras for the button placket, the button stand. So it now just folds on that centre back panel. And then the front, again, is just more or less the same. Originally on the gowns, obviously the centre front here is on the fold, but that's no longer going to be the case, and essentially it's going to open with a slit that runs down into the skirt of the petticoat, and then there'll be a drawstring at the top neckline there, and under the bust there, and this excess here, this line here is what would be my natural centre front, so as you can see I've just added on a little bit extra here for the gathering allowance, so obviously that will gather up back to more or less there, and really that is all there is to it, I think. So anyway, we'll see how that looks and how that goes, and carry on from there. So on this white cotton version, I'm planning to not add sleeves into it. Now the Emma gown does have sleeves, sorry, the Emma gown petticoat I should say, does have little sleeves attached to it, so they're not kind of adding to the bulk overly of the gown sleeves, which in themselves are quite sort of gathered and have a number of layers to them. But yeah, I really just want to try and keep the bulk down as much as possible. Obviously I'm already going to be having a chemise underneath this, as well as the stays, and then obviously with this layer and then the gown layer on top. I know, relatively speaking, that's still not a lot of layers in the terms of historical costume from other areas, for example. But I think for the quickness of just getting this petticoat done and sort of tested out, it's certainly not going to do any harm just to do it without sleeves. When I come to do the blue silk petticoat, I am intending to put sleeves on that, so you do still get that kind of slight difference of the colour showing underneath the gown sleeves. So once I've cut out the bodice panels, I start by French seaming the panels together. I just find this is the neatest way to enclose the raw edges of the seams, and without having to resort to the modern overlocker. just finishing off the edge of the armhole by folding over and pressing seam allowance. And then I'm folding it over again and repressing it to hide that raw edge. I'm using a tailor's ham just to give me a little more flexibility and just help with the curves. It's definitely a fiddly job, but it's not impossible if you just take your time and just steam and ease, steam and ease. So that's the bodice panels all together and done, and they are ready to be attached to the skirt panels. So all I've done is created a drawstring channel around the neckline. I've anchored the ribbon, it's at the back neck, so it doesn't draw up the back too much. I only really want the gathering just at the very front over the bust. Finished off the arms, as you'll have just seen, the armholes, arm size. And yeah, so this will close together with a drawstring. There will be another drawstring underneath the bust line here when the skirt is attached. And that is all the fastening that there is going to be. I am not too worried if there is a smidge of gapping at the front in any way, because essentially it's a petticoat. There's going to be the gown that goes over the top, and there's going to be stays and chemise underneath as well, so you know it's not going to be revealing anything. And yeah, just in the interest of keeping it, you know, as simple and straightforward as possible. And a lot of gowns at the time actually fastened in this way. Even the outer gowns would fasten with string or ribbon drawstrings. So I'm just measuring out the skirt panels. I don't have pattern pieces for this. I tend to just measure and mark the lengths that I need as I go. And I also don't know if you'll see 100% because of the angle that the camera's at. But I'm essentially cutting two trapezoid panels, so slightly narrow at the top, flaring out at the bottom, and then the other panel, or two panels because there's the selvage edge, is flipped on the reverse, so wide at the top end and narrow down here. So obviously once they're flipped and seamed together, that should create enough fullness for the skirt. It's not quite as full as my actual gowns are at the moment. It's a little bit narrower than that, but I'm hoping it'll still be enough. I don't want to make these petticoats overly full, and I don't want to have too much gathering around the waist, around the underbust. So yes, so we'll see how it goes. If I need to add extra in, then I can always add some gauze in if necessary, and also I can adapt it on future variations of the petticoat as well.
And sex in a base, brutal, and unforgiving way, which I thought was really exciting because, you know, when we think about vampires, of course, like, I'm obsessed with the Ishioka, Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is very extravagant.
Yes.
And Orlok is not that. He is a guy.
And you know, it's a different version of, it's a different experience. The costuming is gorgeous. It's beautiful. But what Robert is always very interested in is something more terrifying if you can believe that it's real. Mm-hmm. If you can believe that people actually are out, you know, walking around in these particular garments. And so, the research was centered around Transylvanian / Hungarian account from around 1580.
So here is my first try on now that the bodice and the skirt are attached together. So I've been able to obviously gather up the drawstrings and try it on properly. And yeah, I think we can see it's a petticoat, it's not supposed to be anything fancy schmancy. And obviously I am just wearing it over my modern undergarments and jumper, and I've still got my skirt on underneath as well, so it's kind of not hanging quite as straight as it should. But for the purpose of just checking the fit, it's fine, and so I don't think there's going to be too much altered. The only thing that's going to change is that kind of my bust level is going to sit a little bit higher. Otherwise, that's pretty good. So I think the last thing you would have seen me sewing was I was pinning the underbust waistline, whatever you want to call it. So what I basically did was I was kind of inspired by an extant gown that I found an image of on Pinterest, and there was a really fabulous close-up of essentially this section here where the drawstring comes out, and it was in an almost pretty see-through sheer muslin. And yeah, you can basically see that they'd created the channels by overlapping the bodice and the skirt panels to create a very flat seam rather than seaming in, and then obviously all the bulk of the selvage is on the inside, and that has to then be tucked down. Yeah, it's basically laying it over the top to create a very flat channel, which I really like the idea of, so I wanted to give that a go, and that has worked out really well. So the last thing I have to do, which obviously you can't see because my table is here, is to sort out the hem, which is going to involve obviously turning the hem up, and then I'm going to put rows of pleats in to bring the hem up some more and add a bit more body to the hem of the gown. As I said earlier in the video, I'm interested to see how that performs in keeping the skirt flared out compared to having something more bulky, such as the quilted petticoat hem. Rows of pleats in the hem of the petticoat. I'm hoping that's enough because I really want to have to put another pleat row in, and also that's my bobbin thread. I'm literally down to the last couple of inches on my bobbin thread, and I really don't want to have to wind another bobbin at this time of the evening, so yeah. I'm going to have a final try on, and we shall see. There'll either be 3 rows in the hem when you see the final reveal, or 4. So yeah. So I am now carrying on with my second petticoat, which is going to be the beautiful silk havertide petticoat, which I will admit I am slightly nervous about cutting out this fabric because even though it's havertide, it is silk, therefore it is not cheap. But I am fairly confident. The pattern, obviously I've used the pattern for the cotton petticoat just previously, which is more or less the same as the pattern that I've used for my Lizzie day gown. So yes, I'm fairly confident that there's not going to be any major fit issues or anything like that. So yeah, I am basically just going to lay out the pattern and crack on with this, but I am going to do things in a slightly different order. So with the cotton petticoat, I basically cut the bodice panels out first, and made that up, and then cut the skirt panels out. One of the things I found was that the skirt on that petticoat, the way I laid the pattern out to kind of get the panels out of the same length, the width of the hem that created was obviously restricted by the width of the fabric panels, is only really just wide enough for me. It's it's okay. I can probably dance and walk in it, but if I really do like a really long wide stride, that stride is essentially restricted. So so what I've learned from that is that this silk fabric is exactly the same width as the cotton. So essentially what I'm going to do is offset the skirt panels slightly, which means that I can get a bit more flare out of the hem. But also because I'm obviously going to be offsetting the petticoat panels a bit more, it uses a bit more length in the fabric, and it means that there will be some negative spaces where I'm hoping that the smaller bodice panels will be cut out of, which is it's less wasteful of the fabric that way. So these marks here are essentially going to be the hem depth. So this mark here is exactly where I want the hem to stop. This section will fold under, and then I will create the padding in this section here. And I've kept it straight because that is just going to make it easier when it comes to obviously folding this up. The width down here should match the width up here, so it's just a question of simply folding it up without having to ease in or work out a mirror image to fold it onto an angled seam. So that's why I'm doing that. And then here you can see I'm tapering it up to be a little bit tighter on the waistband under the bust. The other thing I'm going to be doing with this petticoat is I'm going to be adding sleeves in. Sleeves, I am probably going to make them little puffy sleeves gathered into a little cuff. Although this is a petticoat, I finally settled on the gown style that I'm going to make with the black fabric. And I've decided to just make a little bit of a feature of the petticoat in places on the bodice. So I have finally cut out the pattern for the petticoat, and I have to say that took far longer than it should have done, and I have decided already that I hate working with silk havertide, and I've not even started sewing it yet, so it's going well. But yeah, hopefully it will all be okay, and it's all cut out, but it is very slippery. So yeah, fingers crossed it has behaved and not moved about too much as I was cutting it out, and it will go together okay. And luckily it is just for a petticoat, so yeah, it shouldn't be too bad, hopefully, no. Okay, so let's start putting the bodice together. So now that potentially more of this petticoat is going to be on display, or show a little bit more underneath the gown that I'm planning to make for this, or at least one of the gowns I'm planning to make for this, I'm going to do a bit more hand finishing off than what I did on the cotton petticoat. I'm probably going to bind the armhole seam with some bias binding made from the leftover scraps of this silk. Yes. Okay, so the basic petticoat is together much in the same way as the cotton one is now. Sleeves are in, skirt is attached, and the channels for the ribbon lacing are all in place as well, both under the bust and above the bust around the neckline. In the end, it didn't actually sew too badly. The hardest thing I found with it is actually holding it to pin. It just, yeah, trying to pin the waistband, the underbust seam, trying to pin that in place took forever because it was just fighting and it was moving and the pins didn't want to go through. New pins, brand new pins that I only bought a week or so ago, because I don't know about you, but yeah, pins just disappear. They're a bit like socks. They just gradually disappear. And I was at the point where I was kind of kept scrambling around in my little pin box, and was like getting less and less pins. So yeah, I had to go out and buy some new pins. So yeah, fresh sharp pins, and yeah, I was struggling to get them through this fabric places just because it's so slippery and just want to move all the time. But anyway, we are there, and I apologise if you haven't seen very much of the putting together of this. I've shown you a few clips of some of the hand stitching that I was doing, but more or less the construction was the same as it was with the cotton petticoat, and I'm sure you don't really need to see or want to see me every stage of sewing another petticoat, but what I am going to show you is the interesting bit, which hopefully you are as excited for as I am, which is we're now going to finally sort out this padded hem. So yeah, obviously when I cut these skirt panels out, I allowed plenty of extra in the length. I allowed a good 8 inches to turn up, and you see I've already pressed the top edge of the bottom edge, I suppose, of the hem over so that there's a nice sharp crease there, ready for when I turn it up and stitch it down. I have here the wadding that I'm going to put inside. So this is just 2 ounce quilt wadding. It's polyester. Traditionally they would have probably used sheep's wool, something like that. I picked the 2 ounce stuff because it's not very thick. I don't want it hugely thick. Obviously I handled the Emma petticoat, and although I would say that it felt thicker than this, it was strangely lightweight. I have got some thicker quilt wadding because there's normally what I use to pad out my mannequins when I need to adjust them to different client sizes. So this is probably the 6 ounce wadding, so it's 2 sizes up from the thinner stuff, and yeah, you can see the difference. Oh, she says, find the if I could actually hold it end on to the camera, you can see the difference there. So yeah, so I figured at the very least I'll start with this and see how it goes. If I feel that just this one layer isn't enough, then I can potentially always double it up. I'm basically going to cut a strip or strips of this in enough length to go around the circumference of the hem, and then I've got here, and I will put some photos in of what I'm looking at, which is from the costume study day. You can see that it's stitched into 3 rows, but the stitching lines are just hand tacked running stitches. It's not machine sewed, and even the very top edge where the obviously when the hem's turned up, the top edge where it's stitched to encase everything, that is hand stitched as well, I think, by the looks of it. She's zooming in on the pictures. Yeah, that's a simple, a very quick, simple running stitch just to tack that in place, so it's not very securely anchored. But I'm guessing that's probably just enough. With the thread going through here, it just holds it all securely in place. When I cut the skirt out, I think I mentioned that obviously it was kind of a trapezoid shape, so it was narrow at the top, so it's not too bulky with the gathering under the waistband. And then obviously I flared it out. But when I got to the point where I want the quilted, the padding to sit, I then straightened the hems, so in theory it's just a question of turning it up, and I shouldn't have to fight too much with easing in at the wider hem. So first thing I'm going to do is just remark the hem. I did roughly chalk it out when I was cutting the skirt panels out, but obviously it's been handled a lot since yesterday afternoon when I cut it out, so yeah, I'm just going to remark the fold line and for the very base of the hem, and yeah, we'll go from there. This fabric's so slippery. Oh dear. Do not recommend working with silk habitai. So yeah, it might not show very well on camera, but I can see the straight here, and then it tapers off up here, and that taper point is roughly 16 inches, which I think was correct. That's what I measured it at, an 8-inch turn up, so that all makes sense. Don't know how well you'll see this, but I'm literally just doubling up the length of thread, and then I'm just simply doing a very simple chunky running stitch, which is not dissimilar to what they've done on the Emma gown. So this is obviously the top of the hem, where I'm obviously catching that edge down, and then I'll do it again twice to create the three tiers further down on the padded section. Well, that is the padded hem all sewn in, and I have to say I'm really pleased with how it's looking. I'm not normally one for just tacking stuff in, but you know, that's what they did on the film costume, so I've done it here, and yeah, it appears to be working. It's quick and easy. So yes, I'm excited to see how that looks. However, my battery is about to die on here, so I'm going to have to charge the camera before I can go do the petticoat reveal. So this is the first try on over my chemise and short stays, and I've also got my stockings on with my shoes as well, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. So it is behaving pretty much as I wanted it to. So the line of the petticoat is sitting kind of just above the line of my chemise, and hopefully I will try one of my gowns on in a moment. The gown should sit just above that as well. As I also suspected, having the open front is really not going to be an issue. I say I've got the chemise and stays on underneath here, and obviously behind the gowns on top as well. You know, it's not going to matter if there's a little bit of gapping. If I wanted to, I could probably put a hook and eye just at the underneath the lace points, just to add a little bit more security if I really wanted to. But you know, by the time I've got a gown on, I don't think it is going to be an issue. I'm really happy with the length, and I really like the effect of the pleats in the hem. You'll have probably seen me testing out the kind of the stride in it, and yeah, if I really stretch out, you know, that is the full kind of stride that I can take. But I'm not going to be striding like that, even just doing like a fast kind of walking pace, and then even try to cut a few little kind of dancing steps and galloping steps, and yeah, I wasn't feeling restricted in any way there. Obviously, whether, you know, like when I'm out in the street and the wind is blowing, whether it will still cause an issue with the friction on cotton stockings as I'm walking, I guess that remains to be seen. But first try on, the extra structure that the pleats in the hem are giving seems to be helping kick the gown out, or the petticoat out, which in turn should kick the gown out. So yeah, so for the cotton petticoat, I am very happy. Okay, so I've managed to get the gown on by myself. I have just fastened the top back button. Yes, so it's done up enough that obviously I can see the fit of the neckline, and it's just, as I hoped, covering over the petticoat line, and obviously I could probably shuffle that about if I needed to anyway. But yeah, that works. And I will show you a full length shot. You can just see the line of the petticoat sitting above the hem of the gown. So that is perfect for me. And I do feel that just those pleats in the hem are actually doing a good job at just helping kick the hem of the skirt out a little bit more, which, considering obviously it's quite slim and it probably could have been a little bit wider in the hem of the petticoat, it's doing a good job. I'm really quite pleased, and I can feel that it's not catching around my legs, so yeah, bonus. Oh, I do like it when a plan comes together and things work out. The silk version of the petticoat, and I have to say this is so lightweight and comfy and floaty and just so pretty. It is almost a shame to have to put something on the top of it, but you know, for a beautiful petticoat, a silk petticoat, they're just swishers. I mean, for dancing or balls and things, it's going to be just perfect. It's beautiful. The way it moves as well is so lovely. Obviously it has a bit more fullness in it than the cotton one, which I wanted, and I love it in the skirt, and I'll show you some more details of the skirt in a moment. I do feel like the bodice feels a bit bigger than the cotton petticoat. I'm going to assume that's because this fabric was so slippery that it's possible it has skewed a little bit when I've cut it, which is a bit of a shame, but as I say, it's a petticoat, so it's really not the end of the world. And some of it might just be adjusting the ribbon ties. I'm not going to be keeping these yellow ribbons. These are just it's the only 3mm ribbon that I had enough of. So I think I'm going to swap this out for a more bluey grey, probably more blue. Try and keep the colours more on the blue side rather than the grey side. I think if I add in more grey, it just makes the fabric a little more grey. And obviously it is a grey, but if I bring more blue into it, it kind of brings the blue tones out and it just makes it more of a bluey grey rather than a grey blue. There's a difference. But yeah, the sleeves obviously are look lovely, and so I've incorporated the sleeves because I want to use that as a feature, so that you'll see just a sneak peek of them underneath the gown that I'm planning to make to wear with this. And the same with the bodice front as well. I've got an idea of how I'm just going to have a little bit of the bodice neckline, the petticoat neckline on show. So again, I probably will add a hook and eye, certainly at this point here, just to make sure that does stay anchored in, you know, the feverish dancing of a hot ballroom. We wouldn't want that coming apart. So yeah, but otherwise that is lovely. And then the hem, I mean, I'm obsessed with padded quilted petticoat hems. Whether I'm going to like it as much with my current gown, we shall see. But it's certainly something that I will play towards when I create, or certainly one of the other gowns to go over this. So there we have it. That is my 2 new Regency petticoats, which I think have turned out rather well, if I do say so myself. And that means I can now move on with the next stage of my decades project, which is to make some of those beautiful, almost sheer muslin Regency gowns to wear over these petticoats. I really can't wait to have some new gowns to wear out and about for events, and I'm really hoping that I'm going to be able to offer some of those styles to my Blue Lady Couture customers as well. So if you haven't already, and if you are interested in being on my subscriber list to know when those gowns will become available, my subscribers are going to get first chance to get in my order books. So make sure you follow the link in the description down below to subscribe to my website. If you don't want to subscribe to my website and you just want to watch my videos here on YouTube, then that's perfectly fine as well. And you're more than welcome to just subscribe to my channel. That really helps my channel to grow. And if you would like to like this video by clicking the little like icon down below, and if you can leave a comment, that also really helps my channel out and helps tell YouTube to push it out to more people. I shall be back very soon with another Regency sewing vlog for you, where I will be putting those gowns together. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you in that next video. Bye! We go from these very straight column. I can reach. Oh, I need a lady's maid. Oh, where's the hole? Oh. Oh my god. Yes. Ha! It worked.